welcome to this month's edition of DuPont Collaboration Series. I'm Samantha Loring. Now, the African continent has a unique set of challenges which have the potential to lead to opportunities for world-class innovation. However, excellence in science is needed that in order to innovate around some of the biggest challenges, including food and security challenges. On this edition of the show, we'll be unpacking the role of science in enabling innovation in Africa, including how collaboration can unlock the answers that science can provide. Joining me in studio to share their insights, Mboneni Mwape, Deputy Director General for International Relations and Cooperation at the South African Department of Science and Technology, Dr. Rachel Chikwamba, Group Executive for Strategic Alliances and Communication at the CSIR, and McLean Sibanda, CEO of the Innovation Hub. Joining us as well from our bureau in Abuja is Carmen Moya, Regional Director for DuPont Sub-Saharan Africa, and from our bureau in Nairobi, Kenya, Dr. Francis Muregi, Director for Research and Development at Mount Kenya University. Well, welcome to you all. Great to have you on the show today. McLean, I'll start off with you. Let's look at South Africa in a global context and what South Africa is striving to become, a knowledge-based economy. Now, just looking at the World Bank Knowledge Economy Index, we've got the Nordic countries always leading the way there, the likes of Sweden coming out on top when it comes to that index. South Africa now sitting at around 67, Mauritius slightly ahead of us, 62. But talk to us about your perspective on what knowledge-based economy means and how we can link up innovation and the role of science when it comes to becoming that.
Yeah, thanks, Samantha. So I think what we see is a need for South Africa and indeed most of the developing countries to move from being resource-based economies, where in essence the economy is based on minerals and the mining of those minerals, to becoming knowledge-based, which is the value add. And in any knowledge-based economy, the value comes in terms of the creation of new knowledge, the creation of intellectual property, the creation of technologies that can then be commercialized globally. And so in essence what we see is the need to then start to change the entire ecosystem. So it means that we have to change our education system to talk to the economy of the future, and also changing the kind of work environment to provide for work situations that are going to also be talking to the knowledge economy in the future.
Rachel, let's talk to you also about the context of where we are when it comes to the specific era that humankind is in right now, because just looking back, we have of course had the STEAM age, we had the information age, and now we've moved into the era of bioeconomy, defined as that. What does that mean? Put that into context for us.
Thank you very much, Samantha. The bioeconomy refers to the understanding and use of knowledge around the life sciences, understanding life sciences from the basic microorganisms, harnessing that understanding to drive the economy. Now, understanding the biosciences and how life works can allow us to deal with huge challenges that Africa faces in various sectors, to include medicine, to include agriculture, to include environmental protection, and so on. So when we talk about the knowledge economy, we're speaking with the bio-based economy. In the bioeconomy, we talk about the harnessing of life and life sciences, the harnessing of organisms therein, processes that they drive in order to meet the challenges of the day in the various sectors. And our understanding of biotechnology is very key to that particular economy. And so that is where indeed we're at, and we're grateful to the DST for having put into place a strategy that speaks to how we as a country ought to be focusing our energies, our innovativeness in that space to start to drive that kind of economy. So that's where South Africa is at, and indeed the rest of the world.
So as you say, looking at from a government perspective right now, we have highlighted that this is one of the areas of focus when it comes to R&D spend, when it comes to science and technology priority areas. So Mboneni, talk to us about the perspective from government right now, because we know that the DST is very much guided by the 10-year innovation plan, that up to 2018. Innovation is hoped to become more and more of a watchword in South Africa right now, but upfront on the innovation plan, it was highlighted that South Africa at this point in time is very behind when it comes to these knowledge-based economies we talk about in the rest of the world. So how would you rate the overall health of the South African science and technology space?
Yeah, thanks very much. I think we need to look at it in context in terms of where we want to go and what plans we've got in place to go there. The innovation economy is not a destination. Not even the countries that we look forward to have reached it. When you look and read it at the OECD documents, they talk about the OECD countries striving to move towards a knowledge-based economy. So we are sort of in a race, all of us, trying to move in that direction. And basically this is because knowledge is infinite, and we all are striving to generate new knowledge to get there. And as a government, what we want to do is to create that environment for the players to play. We want to create a conducive environment for the South African national system of innovation to thrive. And when that happens, I think it opens up a number of opportunities for that to thrive. And we are aware that when you look at the current, whether it's looking at competitiveness index, etc., you're going to see the Nordic countries are far ahead. We have been working very closely, for example, with the government of Finland to sort of pick some lessons. But of course, when you engage, you realize that you cannot just simply unplug and plug. There are a lot of nitty-gritties that sometimes need to be dealt with in our own home country. McLean mentioned something about education. One of the things when you talk about knowledge-based economies, they all are underlined by high levels of education. And that is really one thing that we also, when we look at building the science system, we need to work together. And I'm pleased that even now as the department, we have started having this working relationship with other government departments well refined. We've got a number of agreements on the go with higher education department as well. So that is really, in terms of government, acknowledging that those challenges do exist, and for us to walk there. Even the best of the best in terms of the most successful countries, it's actually about government, it's about the private sector, and it's also about the civil society. It's about higher education institutions playing their role, and that way we can move towards a truly knowledge economy.
Let's talk about higher education systems and specifically the Mount Kenya University, because Dr. Francis Marigi joining us now from Nairobi to, of course, give the Kenyan perspective on the role in science and technology and innovation. Francis, thanks for joining us today. I mean, just doing some research on the role of IP and intellectual property in East Africa and Kenya, you come across a story where the kiondo, that African bag, was first patented by the Japanese as opposed to an African. I mean, just give us your perspective. How did we get to a point where the Japanese came in and saw an idea and commercialized it, and we missed the boat on that one?
There is an African problem, and this is not just an African problem. I think it's in some countries which are less LCDs, which are not developed even globally, they have not embraced intellectual knowledge as wealth. And in Kenya, for example, I can tell you there are professors, people with PhDs who are having a lot of research, some breakthroughs in their research, but they don't know their first stopping point to have the knowledge or what they have come up with patented. For example, in Kenya, we have what we call Kenya Industrial Property Institute. It's a legal body mandated by the Kenyan government, for instance, to deal with patents. But you find professors who do not know. And you see, if a professor doesn't know about KIPI, then their students most likely would know. And I would say that that way in Africa, we have lost a lot of knowledge, a lot of innovations, and they are going out there. And a good example is what Samantha, you mentioned, the kiondo. It's an African bag. You find our women going to the market and they do a lot of weaving, and it's a technology, it's a traditional technology, but Japanese came and they have patented it, so you cannot claim any ownership to kiondo, and you are the African who weaved it. You look at some many other things which have been taken away, but even the government, for instance, doesn't know. We come to learn about these things far much later, because innovations and patenting and protection of intellectual knowledge is not actually institutionalized in this part of the world. And we want to play a role as our university and other institutions around to sensitize our people and tell them you cannot transform Africa if you continue letting your intellectual knowledge be used out there without protecting it. And again, other than just protecting knowledge, it doesn't help to just protect knowledge without making use of it. When you look at Africa, where food problem in food insecurity is highest in the world, where you find diseases, HIV, AIDS, up to 65%, malaria up to 90% in Africa, you find that we are not doing much. The knowledge or the solutions to the African problems are being, brought in by the developed countries. What are we doing? You find that we are not actually exploiting our knowledge, our innovations to meet our needs, and it is very sad. I think Samantha, that Africa, sub-Saharan Africa specifically, is generating less than 6% of global knowledge, intellectual knowledge. Countries like Netherlands are doing better, above 6% than Africa. The entire Africa cannot beat Netherlands. So it is about us harnessing our innovations to meet our problems, to meet our challenges in the 21st century. We must institutionalize knowledge. We must institutionalize innovations, even to the secondary school level, university level, and I think that's the way to go.
And perhaps we can talk about.
Samantha, yes.
We'll talk definitely about the areas where we have had successes in Africa, here in South Africa, in Kenya, and talk about how we can learn from those experiences in terms of getting ideas to market. I just want to cross to Carmen now, because of course he's joining us from Abuja in Nigeria to get the perspective from DuPont. And Carmen, very much a strong advocate when it comes to collaboration, when it comes to knowledge sharing, when it comes to how you can take experiences from other parts of the world and apply them to Africa. So talk to us about the role of knowledge exchange when it comes to ensuring that we spend more time when it comes to focusing on innovation here.
Science is important. If you look at all our challenges, whether it is food scarcity, whether it is the need to produce more with less, whether it is the need to harness available resources like the sun and use that for energy, whether it is predicting a future with a double, where our population has doubled, all these challenges can be addressed through science and innovation. And at DuPont, we are 210 years old, and we have a long heritage in science. And we're really looking at collaborating locally to bring our science so that to the local communities, to meet local challenges, so that this global science becomes local wisdom. So science is very, very important, and innovation helps people to look at their challenges in a more creative way. And we should not limit science to just biology and chemistry. We should not limit innovation to biology and chemistry as well. And we should look at, say, innovation is about people looking at their challenges and say, how can we do more with less? And that's how we are looking at it at DuPont. And we are working with local communities in their spaces, whether it is in agriculture, to say, how do we help them improve their yield and become more productive on their 1 acre of land? When we look at it more broadly as well, taking global science and making it local, DuPont has looked and worked with farmers in Kenya, for instance, where dairy farmers, where they were having a problem of their milk going to waste because they don't have refrigeration. We've come up with an enzyme that when you apply this enzyme to their milk, it prolongs the life of the milk by another 6 or 7 hours, meaning we are able to double their production.
We'll come back to you now, Carmen. I just want to bring the conversation back to studio here, because so Rachel, the point is we don't want to innovate for the sake of it here in Africa. Absolutely. We have limited resources. We want to focus and prioritize on solving problems that we have, challenges that we have, and also making sure that we play to our competitive advantages. So tell us about how you see your work that you're doing specifically right now playing into those two themes.
Absolutely. So I will talk about the work of my organization, and one of the things that we're talking about is that we want to make our countries and our economies competitive. And one of the issues that McLean framed quite well at the beginning of the conversation was about it has to be beyond just utilizing resources and exporting them. It has to be about being innovative, understanding how things work, and saying, instead of bringing resources, whether it's from the source or from the forest or from the mining pit, to a port where it is exported, how do we add value so that our economies in our countries can be players in the global
So where
economy?
do you see the areas that we're playing into?
So at our organization, for example, we work on beneficiation of mineral resources, looking at things like titanium and saying, how can we create an industry that adds value to the raw mineral base, to something highly valuable, something with application in various industrial sectors, so that we get back the maximum benefit that we can get from the raw resources. We also try to frame challenges of development. One of the things that we focus on strongly is to say, how do we make impact in terms of technologies to improve the well-being of people? And in that regard, we partner with others. I can think of how we've partnered with DuPont, for example, to work on a program with a company of DuPont called Pioneer Hybrid, to focus on the challenge of nutrition. Nutrition in Africa, where we say sorghum is a staple of Africans, but its nutritional quality is very poor. How do we think differently and put all the ingredients that are valuable into sorghum so that our farmers can grow something that they eat that is of high value, since they don't always buy things? So we look at challenges, we bring the relevant partners into the room, and then we try and resolve the issues. But by and large, we look at the resources that we have. How do we make them work for us? Be building on the concept of doing more with less, looking at our resources and saying, how do they give us that competitive edge? So areas of natural advantage, such as mineral resource base, forestry resource bases, is somewhere where we ought to focus on and progress already to develop technologies that add value, so that we get the maximum benefit out of what we naturally have as African countries.
Yeah, and interesting, as you say, that collaboration there with DuPont. McLean, talk to us about more in terms of what the Innovation Hub does when it comes to leveraging off the research that is conducted at the likes of the CSIR and of course facilitated through the Science and Technology Department. How does the Innovation Hub fit into the broader picture when it comes to taking ideas to market? And how would you rate the success of the hub so far?
Yeah. So the Innovation Hub was established as a traditional science and technology park way back in about 2000, but moved to the current site in 2006. And since establishing it, in essence, the focus has been on incubation, it's been on skills development, it's also been on creating clusters and also just organizing the innovation ecosystem in the province of Gauteng. Of course, we collaborate with people across, in other provinces, but also across the globe. So if you look at the value chain and assume that it's a linear value chain where there is idea creation to the market, in the idea creation you'd get the universities, and further down the line you get organizations such as the CSIR that have refined those basic ideas into something that has got an application in the marketplace. And further down you then find organizations such as the Innovation Hub, which are incubators which then work with the CSIR and the academics to then move the idea from being just an invention into an innovation. And so one of the things that the colleague from Kenya was actually saying is that we need to move from beyond just creating the ideas to utilization of the ideas. And so one of the things that we have created together with the CSIR in the mobile area is the MLab. And the MLab is a facility to be able to then take advantage of the huge utilization of mobile phones in Africa. And so in that particular facility, working with Meraka Institute at the CSIR, facilitated by the Department of Science and Technology and also the Finnish government and Nokia, we then bring together young people, we then create these mobile apps that then move into the market. In fact, one of the young people there has got a mobile app that looks at taxis in the township. And he has utilized a technology that came out of the CSIR as a basis for creating the platform for his development.
And is it going to market? I mean, has it gone to market?
It is going to market. He's busy testing it in Tembisa and Alexandra. And in essence, it's a very innovative way of then addressing a challenge that many commuters, taxi commuters, face. Because if you're a taxi commuter, generally you stand on the road, on the side of the road, and wait for a taxi and hope it comes. But generally, they leave full from the rank. And so with his particular application, he's able, a commuter can then send a message to the rank to say, I'm here. and therefore, the rank knows how many passengers need to be picked up along the route. And therefore, the taxi leaves the rank with those 4 spaces, and they pick up the passengers along the route.
So there we go, a success story when it comes to identifying a need, leveraging off research there, and then taking it to market. Boneni, let's get back to the department, and one of the key focus areas right now is on human capacity in the science and technology space. So what is your specific area of focus when it comes to ensuring that the tertiary institutions and even further down the education value chain create the right skills that are needed, the innovation skills, if you could call it that, to feed into organizations like the CSIR and the Innovation Hub?
Yeah. Thanks very much. I just want to pick up my response from Macleod's point that in order to innovate, you need to have something. That something can be a problem. Like we're saying, we've got issues with diseases, we've got issues with food security, we've got issues with safe transportation, it's lack of skills. Or you can say, okay, we have resources in the form of minerals, and how do we then depart and start innovating? Now, what is critical is you have therefore to begin to say, in order for us to do these sort of things that we want to do we have the people that need to do that? And the answer in most cases in our situation is that we have a big shortfall in terms of human capacity. The one thing is, if you look at the number of universities that we have, Finland has got more than 15 universities, and there are only about 5 million people. We're running at around 20 universities for 50 million
what
people.
Can you do? I mean, the skills gap in South Africa.
The point is, while we push to develop as many skills from our institutions, we also need to appreciate the need to network and collaborate internationally, because that creates the platform for scaling. We have, for example, in the department, locally we have recently increased the values of our bursaries for students at tertiary institutions, because in a lot of cases you find that you got a lot of young black graduates. They get a junior degree and they want to go and work because they need to deal with other social challenges. And we're looking at providing some of the scholarships that will enable them to stay on. So you stay on, you do your postgraduate studies, but it's as if you are employed, because the bursary is really good enough for you to support your family. So those are some of the interventions that we have. And secondly, it's also to look at making sure that the programs that we're running, some at the CSIR, some at institutions, they actually have got a very strong element of human capital development. We have launched what we call the chairs of research. These are programs of research that we have invested quite handsomely on, so that when the knowledge is being generated, there must be a huge number of students that are also being trained. And this is really becoming an attractive mode of work for us, because even when we engage internationally, our partners are now beginning to say, oh, we want to also be part of these chairs of research. We have now just started one research chair with the government of Switzerland. We are going to be initiating one with the government of Germany. And again, this is where, because of our lack of capacity, in terms of supervision, you got the experts from overseas who come here and they're involved in those research and they develop capacity. So those are really some of the interventions that we hope in the long run they are going to help us cut this deficit down. Yeah.
Let's cross back to Nairobi in Kenya, because I want to get the perspective in terms of what the university is doing right now when it comes to innovation skills that are needed in the economy. And we know that Kenya has also stated that they're building this Konzo Techno City in Kenya, that's just outside of Nairobi, Francis. So tell us, are you producing the skills that are needed to work in a Silicon Valley like this, Kenya's equivalent of Silicon Valley? And what can be done when it comes to government support to create more engineers, create more scientists needed in the economy?
I think the country, Kenya, is now set. I think I would say we are on the springboard. We are setting ourselves to move forward, and specifically on this IT hub, the Konza City. The government has done so much. It has given land for free, and we have attracted many organizations, international, which have come on board. We are talking of Google, we are talking of IBM. Their prayers, they want to be part of this. And when it comes now to training, I would say that we are trying to train engineers, we are trying to train ICT specialists. And I can tell you, Samantha, the traditional training may not help. In Africa and in Kenya specifically, we were training mechanical engineers. But today you hear people talking about mechatronics. It's kind of the traditional mechanical engineering, it may not work. You must now integrate technology into it. And I think there is a gap. And I think before I even talk about the techno city, Konza, I want to say that there is a disconnect between what the universities, the institutions of higher learning are training, and what the government wishes to see done. I think in Africa and in Kenya also, we are not very quick to change. We move very slowly to embrace change, and I think it is unfortunate because you find, like in Kenya, out of about 25 universities, only 2 universities are training mechatronic course. The others are training traditional, mechanical engineering. But I would say that, well, in terms of ICT, Kenya is moving on well. We have, premier institutions, which are training ICT, and I think on that front we are doing very well. I think M-Pesa is a mobile transfer platform in this country, which has really transformed this country. That even the villager there, a no grandmom in the village now can benefit, from his working son or daughter in a big city. In a moment, just by the touch of a button, he can receive, or she can receive some money, she can receive some information, and it is very, very good. I think Kenya is leading in terms of ICT. The Konza city, which is dubbed the Silicon of Kenya and probably of Africa, it is it is being set to move this country into a knowledge-based economy. And the training which is happening in institutions, we are trying to align ourselves to the knowledge-based economy, but I think the pace at which institutions are doing it is not as I would like to see, but at least we are making progress. Specifically, for example, in my university, we have now, and it's a private university for your information, we have created what we are calling Research Enterprise Innovation Development Center, REIDIC. And what we are doing is we want to train innovators, people who are specialists in ICT, people who are specialists in encouraging people and giving them inducement for them to become innovators. Like every year, I'm going to give $100,000, that is a lot of money in Kenya shillings, about 8 million Kenya shillings, to 10 best ideas. So we want to induce our young people to embrace knowledge and to know that intellectual knowledge can be converted into wealth and it can help in their livelihoods. Because traditionally, we have been training in what we call education for a good job. And that is no longer tenable. We are telling them now, we must transform you to job creators, not job seekers. And therefore, most universities, including my university, we are creating infrastructure and even doing internal funding as a resource for external funding to encourage our people to do innovations, to study courses and programs which will move this nation into a knowledge-based economy, not resource-based and the traditional way. And I think we are moving in the right pace. And the government of Kenya, I want to commend it. It's doing very well because we are being driven by what we are terming as the Kenya Vision 2030. And basically, it is premised on 3 pillars: the social pillar, the economic pillar, and the political pillar.
Yeah.
And it's a holistic approach. I'm sorry, Samantha, but as I finish, is that they are emphasizing on knowledge-based economy, and universities are advised to align themselves to this Vision 2030 to move this economy into a knowledge-based economy.
Mm-hmm. As you say, that is something certainly that you're trying to do at Mount Kenya University. So let's move back to the west of Africa, where we've got Carmen, who's here to talk more about also some of these solutions that we can find through innovation. And Carmen, just like you to touch on before we go to break, the role that science and innovation can play in solving Africa's infrastructure deficit, because certainly we know that infrastructure plays a very important role when it comes to productivity of businesses. So from your perspective, what role can innovation play in this area specifically?
I think science can play a huge role in this space. Our challenges in infrastructure are, can we do it in a way that is more sustainable, so that it lasts longer? Can we build infrastructure faster? And can we take advantage of developments elsewhere, but localize them through collaboration? Again, the aspect of bringing global science to make it local wisdom. And we have a couple of examples in that space, i.e. in Ghana, we have a product, a polymer, that is used to modify bitumen. And normally it's used in the construction of brand new roads. But working with a partner in Ghana, he has come up with an emulsion that is used now to repair roads, to fix potholes, to reduce cracks. And a very good example of taking a global science, looking at the local challenges and really fixing an infrastructure issue that Ghana faces. They've got lots of roads that have been built, but they haven't lasted for long. But again, you can see that science can play a major role. Mm-hmm. I wanted to also just emphasize that if we think that Africa will add on 1 billion people in the next 10, 15 years to its population, and if the current ratio remains where 60% of those under 25, we need to target the youth and really bring science to the young people. In our engagement with government, we need to stress the importance of focusing less on putting a plant and producing something, and then when there's no more need, you pick up the plant and you leave. There's no knowledge transfer. There is no science that has become local. We need to focus on knowledge transfer rather, making Africans gain that knowledge, understand the need for innovation, and really make this part of their culture on an ongoing basis. And through this approach, I think that we can then we can really do more to fix our infrastructure needs and face up to all the other challenges that Africa faces that can be resolved through science.
Yeah, and after the break, we're going to be touching on some of Africa's success stories in the science and technology space. We're going to a quick commercial break now. We'll see you straight after this.